गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीबडी, वेलकम टू क्यूरियस माइंड्स। आज का जो हमारा टॉपिक है वो है पार्ट सेकंड ऑफ चैप्टर फिफ्थ, चेंज इन डेवलपमेंट इन इंडस्ट्रियल सोसाइटी, एंड दिस इज़ ऑफ क्लास 12 सोशियोलॉजी सीरीज. So this is the second last chapter of the series, and we'll be completing this series soon. Very first thing is, if you're understanding it, do write to us. If you have any recommendations, do write to us. And for the next series which we are going to start, it will be most probably political science. Okay, so if you have any other recommendation, you can also write to us. If you have any other topic, you can write to us. Please make notes along with the video. Okay, and without any further ado, let's start with the chapter. Before we start, I would like to say that here part first of the chapter is part first of this video of this chapter. It's more important for exams point of view. Okay, so here we are just going to understand what are the concepts so that we understand the entire chapter and you don't leave anything for the exam. Now, very first thing what we will understand here is how people find jobs. So I've made a gist of methods or ways they used to people use so that they can find their jobs. Very first is through advertisements. We all know, I think many of you might not know, but there is this newspaper which comes weekly, employment, okay, employment news karke. There's this weekly newspaper and it gives you all the it gives you all the news regarding the recent employments and advertisements. That is a specific paper. Otherwise also in every newspaper there are some advertisements for job. Okay, there is some kind of employment exchange also sometimes. Some people are self-employed. Okay, for example, we have plumbers, electricians, we have carpenters, private tuitions, people who teach private tuition, some are architects, some, these days freelancing is also in trend, so that is also there. So some people are self-employed. Some people get their jobs through contractors. Much of the casual labor, they get jobs through contractors only. Okay, and as I already explained, it is mostly in construction sites, brickyards, and so on. So this is how people find jobs. See, here you don't need to understand anything in detail. It's just don't miss out anything, okay, whatever is written in the chapter. So let's just revise it as quickly as we can. Now, how the work is carried out, let's understand. The work is carried out with the help of a manager. Very first thing, the basic task of a manager is to control workers and to get more work out of them, right? And there are two main ways of making workers produce more. One, you can extend the working hours. Obviously, if you're going to do one work in 5 hours and your work hours are extended like 10 hours, the work is going to be more. And the other is if you increase the amount that is produced within a given period of time. Okay, so there is this two ways. Now we all know which is effective. Machinery helps to increase production. I already told you mechanization has been a boon and a bane both, but if we take industrialization into consideration, then it has been a boon. But it also creates danger that eventually machines will replace workers. Now this was said by both Marx and Gandhi. Marx is Karl Marx here. Okay, mechanization has a danger to employment, because once things start mechanizing, I already explained you before also, if one machine can do a job of two people, why would I hire two people when I know even when they do the work, they'll not be as effective and as efficacious as machine, right? So mechanization is also a danger to employment, though it helps in increase production. So it is a boon and a bane both. Okay, as I already told you. Another way of carrying out work or the increasing output is by organizing work. Now let's understand what this concept is. This concept was, invented by Frederick Winslow Taylor. He invented this new system which was known as scientific management or Taylorism or industrial engineering. Under his system, what happened was all work was broken down into smallest repetitive elements and divided between workers. So like if this is the work, so this work was divided into several small sections and different workers used to do the same thing. For example, worker number 1 will do this thing only. Okay, and the second, it's like how work is done in assembly lines. Okay, and workers were timed with the help of stopwatches, and they had to fill a certain target every day. Production was further speeded up by introduction of assembly lines. I already told you. What happens is, earlier whatever things were done, like earlier, during ancient and medieval times, whoever, like, even if a blacksmith made something, he knew what he had made, the entire thing. But nowadays, with machines, coming in, no one person knows the entire procedure of making something, because every worker is assigned a particular job. Okay, and that worker has to complete that job in a particular time, so that it increases production also. Okay, the more mechanized an industry gets, the fewer people are employed. I told you, why would you employ people if machines are much better, and they never tire? So that is why. But they too have to work at the pace of the machine. See, now machines are there, more machines, less people, but these less people need to work at the pace of the machine. Understanding? So something like this is going on with industrialization. Let's move forward. Now, one debate in sociology is whether industrialization and shift to services or knowledge based work like IT leads to greater skills in society. So now many people say that industrialization came in and there's this shift towards services and this IT sector, and knowledge economy, the phrase, which is basically used to describe the growth of IT in India. So it says that there is this debate whether such a shift has led to greater skills in society or not. Now here, let's understand, can you compare two skills? A farmer who is sowing his crops, and for farmer to sow his crops, he needs to understand the weather, the soil, the seeds. Okay, can they be compared to a software professional? No. See, you have to compare the comparables. Okay, now the famous sociologist Harry Braverman argues that the use of machinery actually de-skills workers, as now the computer does a lot of work for them. So nowadays, government is trying to tell you what weather suits your crops. If you take soil health card scheme, with that card you can also come to know about the health of your soil. Now earlier, farmers used to do the entire thing themselves. So in order for them to be good farmers, they had to have good knowledge of the weather also, of the soil also. So these days it is not happening because computer helps out a lot. So this is what Harry Braverman argues. Whereas it's both, like, the shift is good too, bad too. It is bad when you start comparing software engineers to farmers. There is no comparison. You have to compare the comparables. Farmers are very important, but software, it does not mean that software engineers are less important. Both are equally important. It is just that, without food you'll not be able to work. You understand? So you cannot compare, because it is farmers only which provide you all the food. And let's move forward and understand the working conditions. The government has passed a number of laws to regulate working conditions, right? One of which is the Mines Act 1952, which tells you the maximum number of hours a person can be made to work in a week, or need to pay overtime for extra hours work, or safety rules, etc. Now these rules are followed in big companies, that's for sure, but not in smaller mines and quarries. Why? Because see, now if I tell you that you don't have to spend money, not that much money, and people will work for you, would you spend it? See, for business to profit, that is why exploitation takes place. Otherwise it would have been the scene. Okay, moreover, subcontracting is widespread. Now subcontracting is, what happens is, like, if there is a company, the contractors will subcontract. That means that further contractors, people who've been issued a tender to work there, they will further issue tell contractors to bring about casual labor to work. So that is widespread. Many contractors do not maintain proper registers of workers. Okay, so accidents and benefits also they'll not give, because further it's like, once big companies, for example, let's take, there's this one big company. Okay, it got a tender to mine this area. Okay, so that means now it hires contractors, and the contractor decides that they'll be doing this work. Now that contractor might be, sticking to all the rules and regulations, but if that contractor further hires a contractor and tells that person to do the job, the next contractor is not official. Why would he keep the registers of workers? Okay, so the responsibility is also wavered off. After mining has finished in an area, the company, it is required to cover the open holes and restore the area, but the companies don't do this. Workers in underground mines, they face very dangerous conditions because it can be flooded, there can be fire, roofs can collapse, gases are there, ventilation failures are there. You might know that there are many mining accidents. Many workers, they develop breathing problems such as tuberculosis and silicosis. Okay. Now those people working in overground mines have to work in both hot sun and rain and face injuries due to mine blasting. See, this entire thing is what happens. Like workers suffer from, like if we all know that there are certain rules and regulations. Big companies follow it, but the smaller do not. So workers which work under those companies, they have to suffer from all the accidents, and nobody takes responsibility also because they are not registered workers. Understanding? So here I already told you in this chapter, there is nothing as such very important. There is nothing, there is no concept as such. It is just that you don't miss the chapter. Okay, so just listen to it once. I hope you'll understand it. I don't think you need to make notes along with the video. Just listen to it. Okay. In many industries, workers are migrants, and the fishing processing plant along the coastline, they mostly employ single young women. Now, where from a nation of interfering joint families, the nature of work in a globalized economy is taking people in the direction of loneliness and vulnerability. Because previously what happened was joint family used to work together, and now it is not there. But for young women, it also represents some kind of independence and economic autonomy, because if single young women are employed, especially in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Kerala, that means they have money, they are economically autonomous, right? So they are free from the clutches of joint families. So it goes both ways. And let's understand home-based work. Home-based work is an important part of the economy. It includes, for example, manufacture of lace, zari, brocade, carpets, beedies, agarbattis, etc. How is this work done? Firstly, this work is mainly done by women and children. An agent provides raw materials and also picks up the finished products. Home workers are paid on a piece rate basis depending on the pieces they make. Okay. And strikes and union. Strikes and union is many workers are part of trade unions. Trade union in India have to overcome a number of problems such as regionalism and casteism, because firstly I told you that trade unions are basically formed in big companies. Okay. And that also in the organized sector. Organized sector is where more than 10 people work. In response to harsh working conditions, sometimes workers go on strike. Okay. It is not went, it's go. In a strike, workers do not go to work. In a lockout, the management shuts the gate. It prevents workers from coming. See, strike, when you talk about strike is not difficult for just the workers. It is also difficult for the, managers. Why? Because managers, if workers don't work, managers will not be able to get that much profit. Okay, so they'll also be suffering losses if workers don't work. But if they don't work and if they strike, what happens? Workers also find it very hard to sustain themselves without wages. Understanding? So it is difficult for both, but they still stand up for their rights. That is why there are unions, etc. for it. Okay. So this is it for today's video. Okay. And before we end this video, I would like to say some important things. Very first, next chapter is social movements. The chapter is very important. Okay. Like this chapter is divided into 2 videos. I will try and make, multiple videos for you to understand it better. Social movements are very important. Even if I have to make different videos for tribal movements and peasant movements, that will be done. So please revise for it. I don't know if you guys will have your exams this year or not, and if you are having also, please revise it. Okay, listen to the videos once. You might get a hold of something, you might remember something if you've already studied before. Okay, so this is it for video. Thank you. Stay safe, stay home, and please study hard.